What was your epiphany moment that it was time to break up with your partner?
I'll go first. My ex-husband and I had been in couples therapy for many months, and at our very last appointment, the therapist looked at my husband and said, "Do you think she needs to be on more antidepressants?" And I was on Zoloft at the time, and he nodded yes. And she turned to me and said, "Maybe you need to up your dose."
And that was the moment where I realized that if I need to be on more drugs to stay in this relationship, then it's not the one for me. What was your epiphany moment that it was time to break up with your partner?
It was when our couples therapist, after a few sessions of seeing us, asked to see us individually. And I agreed. And she looked me in the eyes and she said, "I think that you should leave as soon as you can. I fear for your life and I fear for your safety. This man is a narcissistic person and he's dangerous. Get out now, and certainly get out before you have any children and before you're tied to him for life." Oh, so I left. But there's a plot twist. Follow for part 2.
What was your epiphany moment that it was time to break up with your partner?
Mine was when I had my daughter and she was 8 weeks old, and it was about 7 a.m. and we were sleeping, and she was a cluster feeder, so I was up all night feeding her. And he wanted to work out in my bedroom. I had a 4-bedroom house that I paid for. There were so many places to work out, so I asked, "Hey, can you work out in a different room and not blare music in here while me and the baby are sleeping?" And he said, "No, why don't you just move to the couch?" And I said, "That's weird." And he threw a whole fit, threw my fan across the room, started calling me all these names, and said if maybe I got my lazy fat whale ass up, I wouldn't look the way I do. And then told me to shut the fuck up. And so then I did shut the fuck up, and then he yelled at me for shutting the fuck up, and then he came over and punched me in the face and started choking me and then ripped my baby from my arms. And that was, yeah, that was the epiphany moment. I had to decide, if I don't leave, either myself or my daughter will be dead. So I left.
What was your epiphany moment that it was time to break up with your partner?
Well, this is a fun one. So I went to visit his parents for Christmas. It was our second Christmas together, and they invited us to their home. It was about 6 hours away from where I live. And when I say I mean where we lived together. We shared an apartment. And at Christmas dinner, his parents started talking about how he used to kill cats as a kid. Like, straight up, like that they couldn't have kittens, that they had to get an older cat because he would kill them. And then, and this is the fun part, I found out that he had been actually arrested for attempted murder when he was 15. So like, we're dating at 28, 15, 14 years later. And suddenly everything makes sense. All these little weird suspicions I had, boom. Got out 2 months later, don't regret a thing.
What was your epiphany moment that it was time to break up with your partner?
You would think that it was the years of constant cheating, but it was not. It wasn't the multiple times that he sent me pictures and videos of himself cheating. It wasn't the constant name-calling and degrading, whether it's the way I'm dressed or the way that I'm talking that day. It still wasn't all the nights that I was forced to sleep on the floor with our child. My day came on August 6, 2017. It was just another day that I caught him cheating. Something about this day felt different, though. It felt like the last time. And he felt that too. He knew I was leaving. Long story short, I tried to pack up my stuff and leave the house as quickly as I could with our son. Half my items were already broken at this point, but I just wanted out. On my way out with my very last item, he barricaded the door. I had our son in my arms. He shoved us backwards. He scratched me. He pulled my hair. He punched me. Every time that I fell to the ground with my son in my arms, I knew in that moment, if I didn't get out for good, I would be dead or my son would be dead. After several attempts, I did get out, and I never went back.
What was your epiphany moment that it was time to break up with your partner?
2.5 years in, the pandemic hit, and I discovered BTS. And I had to ask myself at one point why I felt more emotional fulfillment watching 7 people having fun with one another on a screen than actually feeling emotionally fulfilled with the person I was supposed to be getting emotional fulfillment from. And I was a very, very go with the flow person, and he was giving me below bare minimum. So, yeah, so thanks, BTS.
What was your epiphany moment that it was time to break up with your partner?
Pretty serious relationship with somebody. We were living together, but we were in counseling because it was kind of like on the rocks, but I was like, I can make this work. And then there was this one moment, done. So we were asleep in bed. I wake up because the bed is shaking. It's not what you think. I look over and they are scrubbing the bed. I'm like, what's going on? They were like, I don't want to talk about it. I keep asking them, and then finally they're like, fine, I shit the bed. Of course I was like, are you sick? Let me help, blah, blah, blah. But that wasn't the, tell me that they were dreaming that they were pooping, but then they wake up because their legs were spreading. I laugh, but I also was like, this is a funny situation we can handle. They were like, I can't believe you're laughing. You should stop laughing. Shame. And it was done. Here's the logic. There are two types of people in this world. If you shit in the bed they're sleeping in, one type is going to judge you, be disgusted, and be mad. And the other type are going to laugh and help you clean it up. If you have the laugher and you don't see it as a gift, you don't deserve that. Know your worth.
What was your epiphany moment that it was time to break up with your partner?
For me, it was the moment 3 weeks before our wedding. We were sitting down talking about how we were going to change up our bank accounts after we got married. We were already living common law at this time, and we'd been together for 3 years. And we'd always talked about how, like, we would share all the responsibilities, things like that. And then he told me, once we get married, your account will become a joint account, but mine will stay private. You will always work, even if we have kids. And your money will be our money, but my money will be mine. I will not share any money with you, but you will always be expected to share your money with me. Now, yeah, I called off the wedding pretty damn fast.
What was your epiphany moment that it was time to break up with your partner?
After things ended with my long-term girlfriend, I made the decision that I was never going to date a smoker again. Just deal breaker. And I kept that promise to myself for about 5 years until I started seeing someone who smoked. Now, I made it a point to tell her that I don't date smokers. However, I liked her and I liked our vibes so much that I wanted to see where things went. The only stipulation I made when it came to smoking was that she doesn't smoke in the car. That was it. Fast forward a couple of months, we're leaving a date together, we get on the highway, she starts lighting up in the passenger seat, and I'm over here like, yo, excuse me, miss. I'm like, we just left 2 minutes ago, why didn't you smoke then? She said, I didn't have to smoke then. I'm like, okay, why don't you just wait 10, 15 minutes till we're home? She said, well, I can't wait that long because I'm a smoker and I have an addiction, and you don't have an addiction, so you don't know what it's like. Putting aside the fact that I do have an addiction, it's just not smoking, and the fact that most of my family smokes, that moment spoke volumes to me. We had only been dating a few months, and during that time I had only made one singular request, and she couldn't respect that. Figured if she couldn't respect that a few months in, the future didn't look good.
What was your epiphany moment that it was time to break up with your partner?
In November 2019, I found out my then husband, was having an affair with his coworker. We immediately started marriage counseling. We were doing weekly date nights. We were doing weekends away, anything that we could do to rebuild our trust in our marriage. And I had hope at the time, but I kept catching him in lies. So fast forward to May 2020, I asked him a simple question, a question I knew the answer to. And I watched his face as he lied to me, as the lie just so easily rolled off of his tongue. And in that moment, I knew I can never trust this man. It's as if my heart literally closed, like a door. I never cried again. I was just completely at peace being done, like completely.
What was your epiphany moment that it was time to break up with your partner?
I had told my wife that I was unhappy and that I'd been going to counseling and going to a therapist during the day because I was depressed and did not know if I wanted to be married. She told me that she was extremely happy and couldn't understand how I could be depressed or unhappy in any way. I told her I thought that we should go to couples counseling, and she said she didn't want to and she needed a break, so she went and took a shower and thought. And when she came back, she said that she wanted us to stay married. It was very important to her. She was very happy, and she couldn't imagine why I wasn't happy, but if I wanted to keep going to therapy, I should. And in the meantime, here's a list of all of the things that are wrong with me that I should talk to my therapist about. And that was when I knew that it was over. And this is bacon.
What was your epiphany moment that it was time to break up with your partner?
I really hope he doesn't see this. I mean, if he does, oh well. But my epiphany moment was when he asked me to pay him back $5 for Chick-fil-A. He had been keeping like a running tab of every single thing that he ever paid for me. He was my number one friend on Venmo. He actually is still number 3 almost 2 years later. How does that even happen? And it wasn't that I wanted him to finance my life. I never asked him for any of that. I just wanted to be treated like a girlfriend, and I wanted to, act like this was a relationship and not just a friendship. And I just don't think that he understood that. So I was done paying half for dates. I was done being treated like I was just a friend. I wanted to be treated like a girlfriend.
What was your epiphany moment that it was time to break up with your partner?
So I was doing some home repairs and a big stone fell on my finger and broke it and the bone came out and I had to have surgery. He wasn't there when I woke up from surgery, and then I have this scar, it's hard to see, kind of a cross shape right here on my finger. He says, God must be trying to tell you something. So the day after my surgery, he had to work and left me home alone with 3 kids, and it was terrible. My kid, while I was changing his diaper, kicked me in my finger twice. So he comes home from work and I say, hey, I need help with dishes and dinner for the kids. He looks at me and says, how would a single mother do it? Motherfucker, we found out, didn't we?
What was your epiphany moment that it was time to break up with your partner?
I had a weekly therapy appointment every Wednesday from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. One Wednesday, I was on my way to my therapy appointment when my therapist called and said she had an emergency and she needed to cancel my appointment. So instead of going to therapy, I went through a drive-thru, I got some food, I pulled into a park, and I ate, and then I went home. I was home at the exact same time that I usually was. There was literally nothing different, and he flew down the stairs in rage. He pinned me against the wall outside, and then he threatened to slit the throats of me, my 2 daughters, and our newborn son, because I hadn't gone to therapy. And if I hadn't gone to therapy that day, then I clearly wasn't going any other day, which had to mean I was cheating on him. I showed him where my therapist had called me, and 10 minutes later, I had gotten the food, and I had the receipt. I pulled up the GPS tracker to show the history of where I went. He didn't believe any of it. I was tired of hearing him scream at me, so I went inside and I started making dinner for the kids. When dinner was done, I went upstairs to my room. We had separate bedrooms, and I started packing. He came in, asked what I was doing, and told him I was packing, that I was leaving. He laughed, made jokes, did the, oh yeah, sure, you're leaving, okay. And then it was the, nobody's gonna love you like I do. Finally, at 4 o'clock the next day, when I was all packed and ready to go, as a final try to stop me from leaving, he held a gun to my dog's head and told me he was gonna shoot him. I loved that dog, and he knew it. And I said, well, if that's what you're gonna do, that's what you're gonna do, but I'm still leaving. He then turned the gun to my daughter and said, I'll kill everybody here. The neighbor heard that one and called 911. The cops came. They kept him in the house and me outside the house while my friend came and picked me up. My friend drove me to the airport. I got on a plane. I landed in Missouri, walked to the airport, hugged my brother, and threw up. I spent 7 years with him. This is the morning the day before I left him. 3 days after I left him. 30 days after I left him. If I hadn't left him that day, I would have died. There's no question in my mind. He was so fierce and so convinced that I cheated on him, which I never did. He would have killed me. He would have killed the kids. But he wouldn't have killed himself. He would have played his favorite role, the victim.